6:15 slow train. Lots of people getting on and off as they travel different routes on other lines.
Lots of chances to meet someone. Follow them if he wants to, maybe change trains if he needs to.
So he meets her, he talks to her. Why does she trust him?
He's someone important, respectable, a businessman. He's wearing a suit.
Would you go off with a businessman you just met? Maybe he threatens her, maybe he's got a knife.
Look at all these people. Someone would see. One of the girls would have shouted out.
Nobody saw anything.
He's invisible.
Here we are. Oh, sorry, it's such a tip.
It's lovely, don't worry.
Right. First things first, I need to find Mary Lawrence.
All right. If the killer is a railway guard or a ticket inspector, then his schedule connected to her journey somewhere.
Not just Mary Lawrence, all the girls. Every time he takes a victim, he makes the pattern clearer. Need the points of connection for all the shifts, all the routes, and keep the 6:15 slow train as a constant. You just get to work?
Not tonight.
I've got one. Really?
Just one. Upton Park.
Upton Park?
So where does she know? On site's ruins, rubble.
I need to go and look for her.
How much longer are we going to keep looking?
If a door said there's anything underground.
Dear, we are. There's nothing here, and I've blood in my stockings.
Shh,
Jean?
What was this place?
Oh, Christ.
Mercy.
Lucy, are you seeing this?
I don't want to.
Please. We have to remember all this. We got it.
Please, can we leave? Lucy, are you all right?
She's dead. We were too late.
Oh, sweetheart, we were always going to be too late.
Then what was the point? Why did we have to come here and see her like that if we couldn't even help her? What was the point of it?
Lucy.
She's just like us. She's just like us, and he killed her.
Lucy, I'm so sorry. I didn't think it would be so...
What did you think it would be like, Susan?
Did you see the cigarette butts on the floor in there?
What does it matter?
It matters because it means he took his time in there. It matters because it's so bloody casual. He's not worried, he's not afraid, he knows bloody well he's going to get away with it. So when he's finished, he stops for a smoke, for God's sake.
So what do we do now? Call the police? Leave it at that? Forget it, go home, pretend it never happened?
I can't do that. Not anymore.
Well, neither can I. You're right. They're never going to find him.
We are.
Stay tuned for more of the Bletchley Circle.
See each other afterwards, and who by the mid-50s are leading totally different lives in which they have kept their wartime jobs a secret from husbands and boyfriends.
You know I'm good with puzzles and brain teasers, that sort of thing.
I know you're the very devil with the cryptic crossword.
And you know that these poor girls they found?
Oh, sweetheart. Why on earth are you thinking about all that horrible stuff?
Oh, I don't know. Actually, I do know, really. Susan is a sort of mathematical, not genius, but she's good with numbers, and that's how how her brain works, with patterns and codes and numbers, and she's methodical in that way. Right, how many points of connection are there between the routes the different girls took?
46.
Susan starts to see a pattern in a series of killings that have been happening through London. A pattern which she believes the police have missed. And it's that which draws her back into the world of patterns and codes and trying to make sense of something that appears chaotic and random.
The whole premise of the piece is that these are ordinary women thrown into extraordinary circumstances.
That classic thing about war films, the post-war films of getting the gang back together, have always been male films, and I love the idea of there being a female version of that.
Oh my goodness.
We've got a show that's about a murder mystery and is a social drama that has communal aspect between women, that's got dark murder.
It was a thriller, and that's part of the reason why I got involved with it.
It's just such a pacey, exciting story.
So I just love the script. I love the energy of the script. I love the characters. I thought it was a great thriller. It was a real page turner. I was always dying to know what happened next.
It's a story about women and about the relationship between them and how they sort of grow from each other and from the experiences that they go through. And I really liked that. It's quite rare to find a script that, you know, has that really sort of four strong women at the core of it.
As a male director working with 4 female leads, it was quite an interesting task. Thankfully, they all got on very well. I guess what was interesting is working through quite strong characters.
Oh, you think you'd find another job that easy, do you? There's an awful lot of girls out there, darling, not enough jobs to go around.
Perhaps, darling, but none of them are going to be desperate enough for a job to want to screw you.
I think what's great about Andy is that he's got, you know, a fine, delicate, developed cinematic style, but he's at heart somebody who likes to tell story in quite a direct, open and entertaining way.
Women's situation post-war and a lot of women having to give up jobs and being slightly displaced with the men coming back from war. It was an interesting territory, and I think using the women to tell that story and then finding a different activity for their very clever brains was a good plot.
I love the fact that it was about the sort of untold story of women who worked at Bletchley and what happened to them afterwards.
I think what happened to them after the fact was incredibly sad. I think that they'd signed the Official Secrets Act, so they weren't allowed to say, by the way, we did this during the war.
Timothy says you worked for the Foreign Office during the war.
Yes, clerical work.
Mrs. Gray, I'm not going to ask you to breach the Official Secrets Act right here in Scotland Yard, but it wasn't clerical work, was it? And your husband doesn't know?
So they went back to their normal jobs and quite often weren't allowed, or if they had jobs at all, went back to their domestic lives and weren't allowed to claim what was rightly their own part of the victory of the war.
I find the whole subject matter quite fascinating, the fact that all these people kept these secrets for such a long time, and I guess nobody still knows really what went on.
To research for this project, we went to Bletchley, obviously, and spent a bit of time there.
I didn't know anything about the women who worked at Bletchley at all, so it was interesting to sort of delve into their, because there's quite a lot of documentation now about their lives, and you know, a lot of these young girls were plucked from places like Cambridge and Oxford as these bright young things, you know, and that was their life.
Learning about just the day-to-day sort of mundane activities that these people would have gone through, their rations and the sort of the landscape that they would have been looking at, that was really helpful to me.
I spoke to a couple of relatives who, you know, from the wartime. I got very interested in the sort of austerity post-war, that sort of make-do-amend mentality. I did watch quite a lot of Hitchcock films. In terms of sound, I've done actually.
Train on platform 5 is about to depart.
Why do men do it?
What?
Kill women.
Menacing men and women as victims. Though in our story, you know, the women do come out on top. The task was trying to define the different characters and separate them out so they didn't occupy the same space on screen as such.
How was it on set with 4 leading women? It wasn't quiet.
Playing one of the 4 female leads was glorious chaos.
The best fun.
We got on brilliantly, and we still do to this day. We hang out and get up to trouble. So being woman-centric on set was joyous.
We filmed at the Bluebell Railway as well in Sussex, which was gorgeous.
Bluebell was fascinating, actually. One of the few places you can still shoot that sort of period steam train. So it's a complicated sequence, a lot of planning.
There was a bit of CG help, CGI, and post-production. We constructed some on-set stuff, our kind of main departures board and information boards and things that people could cross and interact with.
I loved filming in St Pancras Station. That was gorgeous because they'd got all the old notice boards out, and it's so beautiful in there anyway, the station now. But I loved doing those scenes.
I think if you're interested in a good period thriller, it has a very exciting train sequence that's convincing and gives the feeling of the times. I think we've done an amazing job.
Everybody seems to have steeped themselves in the history. The costume and props departments and the location scouts, and so all of these people who come together to make something feel like the 50s at a time when obviously very little of that world still remains, have done amazing jobs. And then the actors inhabit that world with such conviction. I'm genuinely thrilled with the result. I think that they've made it better than I had it in my head.